I'm just getting in the groove with that music. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Productive Environment Podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson here in Carolina Beach, North Carolina, and I'm super excited to introduce you to Kathy Muzik.
And I am in the Chicago area.
That's right. And some of you may recognize Kathy. Kathy, you are on, I think, every single one of our podcasts that Barbara and I do together. And you're commenting. So if any of you guys have watched, of course, all of you have, right? Or if you're new, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video and all that good stuff. But if you are a regular and you watch our pep talks, then you have seen Kathy's logo pop up on every pep talk, commenting and engaging with Barbara and I's conversation. So this is Kathy. This is the woman behind the scenes. So I'm so excited today to talk about literally behind the scenes with Kathy Muzik after 234 weeks of planning mastery. So let me bring us on full screen here. I'm going to remove that title. And yeah, Kathy, this is something we were just talking that you're a little bit famous for. You didn't plan to become famous for this, but you are. So first of all, let's back up a little bit. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why we're here.
All right. Well, I am Kathy Muzik, and my business is called New Path Productivity. And I enjoy helping women reclaim their time. To me, time is the first thing people say I don't have enough of. So I have a goal of helping people reclaim their time so that they can enjoy life with less stress.
Say that one more time.
I help people reclaim their time so they can enjoy life with less stress.
That just feels good. Okay. So, as we said, you are famous for something, and it's actually not called planning mastery. We were just discussing you are a planning master, but there is a specific thing that you do that some people may or may not be familiar with, and it's called the weekly review. So, Kathy, who are some people who are going ding, ding, ding? I know that. I know what a weekly review is. Who are those people, and how do they know what that is?
Oh, my goodness. People who take time every week to plan and give themselves an overview of what's to come. I call my weekly review the weekly spotlight. But I have pieced together my weekly review from elements I've found from Stephen Covey. In fact, that's when I first even became aware of the weekly review, was in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he had, and I know Barbara's told this story before about the big rocks and making sure that the big rocks are in the jar before you can put in all the other little stuff around it. But those are the most important pieces. And then David Allen with Getting Things Done, and Michael Hyatt with Your Best Year Ever. So those are really the main influencers, if you will, in my weekly review that I do every week.
I love that. So the people that would be familiar with the term weekly review are people like us that have read those authors, read books by those authors. And I'm certainly one of them, but I cannot claim to have done a weekly review for 234 weeks straight. So what's the difference between you and those of us that have read those books and, do and practice productivity and organization? We have our planners, we have our systems, we have our tools. What's the difference between those of us that have read them and kind of do our own thing, and those of us that like the idea of doing a weekly review and actually doing what they say to do, but then not doing it? What's the difference between us and you in that realm?
I'm going to say sanity. my weekly review is what saves my sanity every week. And I was not always so consistent. So the fact that I've achieved 234 straight weeks, which is the equivalent of 4.5 years, the fact that I've achieved that, my longest streak prior to this, Andrea, was about 8 weeks. So something clicked for me about 4.5 years ago. And I realized I was actively avoiding doing the weekly review. I dreaded it to the point that I didn't even do it at all. But as most of us, I'm sure, can relate, deadlines were sneaking up on me, things that I had committed to other people by a certain, due date, I wasn't doing. And then you've got that feeling of panic, and you've got that feeling of franticness because you're not keeping up with your commitments. You're not keeping up with commitments to yourself either. There are things that I would put into my task manager tool that were for me, and I wasn't doing them. So that panic and that the unknown, I'll call it the unknown, not remembering all the things was really starting to be very stressful and weighing very heavily on me. So that's when I kind of took a look, and I made a little bit of a revelation. And I know I shared this in a blog post that I had done about 4.5 years ago, January of 2020. And I said, during my weekly review, I was doing more doing than I was reviewing.
What do you mean by that, Kathy? Explain.
As I would go through my task manager, which is my online tool that captures all of my to-dos, it captures all my projects, it has some reference areas. It's searchable. Mine is an online cloud-based tool, so I can have it on my phone, I can have it on my computer. I realized that as I started to go through the items in my task manager, instead of looking at it as an overview, I started physically going and doing the tasks. And it made my review take upwards of 4 to 5 hours to complete because I was doing and not reviewing.
Not reviewing. Okay. I want to come back to that point. If I forget, please remind me. I want to give some context to what we're talking about here. If you guys look at this image, this is an image of really kind of our world. Eds, would you mind taking that bottom banner off for me, please? Eds is behind the scenes as well. So basically, we know, and Kathy, you'll agree, that information is coming to us from all different places, right? It's coming from email, multiple email accounts, phones, text messages, messenger, mail, printing, people, conversations, ideas, right? It's coming in from different places, and things are a lot of our clients, all of these things pile up as postponed decisions. As Barbara says, clutter is postponed decisions. They pile up and they don't have anywhere to go. So one of the things that we do is help, give them a place to go. We create a flow, so things that can go certain places. So it sounds to me, just for some context, that by the time it's time for your weekly review, you've already sifted through the things coming in. You have put things in your notes app, which I believe, you can comment on this in a minute, but I believe you're an Evernote person. Am I right? Are you still with Evernote?
I use Evernote primarily as a web clipper for online articles and so on.
Okay.
But I use another tool called Workflowy for my digital notes.
For your digital notes. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, lots of us use Workflowy. So whatever and guys, I want you to hear this. The tools really don't matter. There are some that we would recommend because they do certain things we love, but don't get hung up on the tool. This is about the process. And so, okay, so I'm assuming you've already sifted through these things. You've got notes saved. You've got contact information saved. You've got, maybe you printed something out and you put it in a physical file. And that's one of our in your productive environment finding system that we teach. Or maybe you've put it on your computer or a cloud drive. So that we're not, in this conversation, we're not talking about all this stuff over here in the reference system. The weekly review is related to the action system. And just to get some clarity, you mentioned task manager. That's this column, right? Which encompasses tasks, projects. And it sounds to me like what you were saying, you had made your list, and some people, your task manager is your notebook, and maybe you draw some little squares so you can check them off. That's fine. Some people are using, Google tasks or Outlook tasks, or, there's other tools out there, whatever, where you're keeping track of things to do. Okay. That's what we're talking about when we say task manager. So Kathy, it sounds to me like with the weekly review, the goal is to get a big picture of what's coming up. You said you call it something different. What did you say? Weekly
I
what?
call mine my weekly spotlight.
Spotlight. Okay. So
Now,
go ahead.
I was going to say part of my process is that I've now made time for doing
That's what I was going to ask
before I
you.
do the reviewing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That was what I was going to ask you next. So let's go back a second. You said one of the challenges or obstacles you had is when you did say, oh, you read these books and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this weekly review, this weekly spotlight. But then you started like, we teach to start a task with a verb, like do this or call this person or reply to this person. You sat down to do your weekly spotlight, weekly review, and you started actually doing that. You're like, oh, I forgot to reply. Let me do that right now. And what happened when you did that?
It was taking more than 5 hours a week to get my review done.
Okay. So then you caught yourself, and I think and let me just mention this and then I'll come off this slide. But in your weekly spotlight, you were also addressing your upcoming meetings, appointments, calendar things. Is that correct?
Yeah, for me, my spotlight is actually a look back at the prior week and it's a look forward to the upcoming
So
week.
it's both. Okay. It's both. You're reviewing both. Okay. So I'm going to take this screen off. If you guys want to grab this picture, you can take a screenshot now if you like, and it's going to be gone in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're back. So I think I heard you say that you changed when you realized you were taking so much time with the review, and that now you set aside time before the weekly review, not after. Now, why before? Is it because it was the previous week and you don't want to jump into, if you do it after, then it's the next week, right? Or you tell.
Doing the doing
Mhm.
before the review gives me an opportunity to build some momentum. I'm getting some things done that I know I'll be able to check off the lists
Mm, we love that.
before I get that going.
Right.
So, and it's usually those little, anywhere from 3 to 5 minute tasks that just they get put off during the week because it's just doesn't feel like the right time to get it done. But it
Mhm.
frees up some brain space for me because I know there is time for me to do those things and then they don't hang over me. So I actually have a label in my task manager that I call appointment for output. And I can actually do a search. I have a filter in my system that allows me to narrow it down very, very quickly to just those things. And then I can just mark them off the list and feel good that they're done. The doing is over, and then the reviewing
Mhm.
commences.
So, okay, a couple questions. So you said appointment for output. What does that mean? That's an appointment with yourself to do those things? Is that what that
Yeah.
means?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's how I label those little 3 to 5 minute things that I know I can
Okay.
knock several of them out, and I
Mhm.
don't need to stop whatever I'm doing during the week when maybe I'm in a flow getting some other things done, or I'm in meetings, or I'm with clients. I don't need to be distracted by those things because I know there's a time that it's going to happen. I can mark them with that label and just move on.
Okay, I love that. So, time-wise, how close to the time that you do your review do you do the appointment for output tasks?
It's right before it.
Right before. Okay.
Mhm.
So not a day before,
No,
not morning, and then you do the review in the afternoon. It's literally built into that time, that
correct.
space. Okay. So you knock those tasks out. Well, how long are you finding those? You might have just said that, but how long are you finding those things take?
I allow for a half an hour.
Okay. So you plan that. Okay. So you do your half an hour of, basically, to me, that sounds like tying up loose ends. If something had fallen through the cracks, you're like, oh, let me jump on that, and you handle it. Okay. And then it's time for the review. And you said you review the week before. So what does that look like?
I go through all of my capture points which
What does
are
that mean?
email, my
Okay.
task manager,
All of these things. These are capture points, right?
right.
Okay.
All the areas where there's information coming in,
Mhm.
and included in those areas might be things that I need to take action on or I might need to follow up on.
Okay. And that's this first column here.
Right.
Okay. So you review that first, and
I
then
do.
you handle those little tiny little, because throughout the week you're doing things as well. You're replying and you're doing, and but there's a few little things that's like, that's not my highest priority on Tuesday, but it's okay because I know I'm going to get to it on what day do you do your review typically?
I used to do it on Sunday. Now I try and do it on Friday. But if I can't do it on Friday, I don't skip it. I just reschedule it for either
Reschedule.
Saturday or Sunday.
That is so key. That's a really, really important point. That you've got set a time set aside for yourself to do this. You don't skip it and go, "Oh, I didn't get it. I didn't get to my review this week. I'll try again next week." You say, "Okay, I want to go to this museum or go do something fun on Friday, or something else is happening. So let me look at my calendar and let me see over the weekend when I can do it." And maybe if you're busy all weekend, but by Sunday evening, you're like, "Okay, that's my time. I'm going to do it."
Right. Well,
So
now that it doesn't take 5 or more hours, it's a lot easier to reschedule.
right. Right, exactly. He's used to, I can imagine it'd be like all half a day, like, "Oh, I can't go do anything fun. I've got to do my weekly review."
Yeah. Very
So,
demotivating.
yeah. Okay, so you've looked back at the previous week and you've checked off a few things off your list. And then, so how do you look forward? And is there I mean, maybe I'm getting too detailed, but is there a transition point? Like, okay, that part is done. Looking back is done. Now I'm looking forward. What is there a transition thing that happens there,
Not
or not
really.
really?
For me, my weekly review is extraordinarily detailed.
Okay, that's
So
not a that's not a shocker.
for anyone who knows me, no, I'm sure. In addition to just taking a look back, reviewing notes, are there any to-dos that I have to move over and put them into my task manager? But
Okay.
each week, I've also set 3 weekly goals, up to 3 weekly goals that I want to accomplish. So during that look back, I also take a look at how far did I get on these 3 big things that I wanted to accomplish during the week. And I
Mhm.
kind of reflect on, what worked, what didn't, why
Mhm.
didn't it work? Did I overload myself that week? Did, we all
Mhm.
have it where, higher priorities come up that are unexpected. So I go through that process
Mhm.
and I really credit that mental exercise with how I came to 234 weeks of a consistent weekly review. Because as
Mhm.
Barbara says, if something's not working, it does you no good to just jump to something else and try it. You really need to evaluate what's not working about it. And that's how I came to the conclusion that my weekly review
Mhm.
wasn't working because I was doing and not reviewing. So it may
Wow.
seem like wasted time to really sit down and think about those things, or it may not be the most comfortable thing, but
Mhm.
it's really, I believe
Mm.
that was the threshold for me between my biggest streak being 8 weeks to now my streak being 234 weeks, was understanding that about what was happening and being able to consciously make a change about it.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Thinking it through. And so a lot of times people, when I say people, that includes me, people say, "Oh, I tried that, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. That tool didn't, oh, it must be the tool's fault. The tool didn't work for me, or that system didn't work for me." So, but maybe we were giving up too soon. In PEI, we always say, Barbara always says, trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think giving something a good solid 90 days, not a week, not 2 weeks or even a month, but a good solid 90 days of really trying and tweaking. It doesn't have to be perfect. Not everybody has the same system, nor should we. but finding something that will work for you. So let me ask you this. Okay. Well, two things. How long does it take you now? So not counting the 30 minutes of doing, how long is the actual spotlight time?
The actual spotlight time is about an hour and a half.
Okay. So total, you're all in about 2 hours
Yep.
on Friday or on Sunday, reviewing and planning. And
And not to
how,
let that deter anyone, because
right.
that's my review, and I
Yeah.
know
You're
mine
very detailed.
is
Yeah.
complex and detailed. So there are people
However,
who can do a weekly review in 20 minutes. So
right, exactly. But I was going to say, how much time do you feel that by putting in those 2 hours, how much time during the week do you think that saves you if you hadn't done it?
wow. Honestly, I don't even know if I could calculate it. There's a quote from Dale Carnegie, I think it is, that says an hour of planning saves
Mhm.
you 10 hours in doing.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can verify that math, but I
Yeah.
do know it saves me the mental stress
Mhm.
of wondering what I should be doing versus what I am doing.
Mm.
And the
Oh,
fact that
that's good.
I have this very consistent cadence of looking over the
Mhm.
tasks and the projects, I'm making much more intentional decisions,
Mhm.
and I'm planning my time with intention as opposed to being pulled through my week with the shiny object or the fire that pops up. I have much more intentionality around how I spend my time during the week.
I love that. That's good. I just did the math. So if it takes you 2 hours, including the doing, I should actually not include the doing, but that makes my math easier. No, let me just do the 90 minutes. 90 minutes, I'm trying to make the math easier. 90 minutes divided by 5 days. I'm not even going to do 7 days. We'll just do 5 work days, right? That's about 18 minutes a day. So do you feel strongly that that time of the weekly review saves you at least 18 minutes a day during the work week?
At a minimum, yes,
At a
at a
minimum. So
minimum.
that's a good investment. If we're talking about return on investment, if it saves you 18 minutes a day, that's break even. But you just mentioned it's even a better investment because you have the less stress. Like you don't feel like things are falling through the cracks. That's one of the big things that a lot of our clients feel like they're going so many different directions. They've got all this information coming in. Let me show this again. Things are coming in from everywhere, and and they feel like they're dropping balls. They can't, and truly we can't do it all. You can't, I mean, you do have to face the fact sometimes that you are human and that, you can't do everything that you want. But at least if you do some of this wrangling, you said capture. I mean, I love the word we talk about capture tools and things like that, but it's like wrangling it all in. um at least you're doing that, and that puts you in, like you said, the headspace of, okay, I have what I need, I know what I need to do, I need to, and then you take action to do.
Yeah.
So another question that I have is, okay, I have so many, but I'm looking at the time. So with have there been times in the past 234 weeks that it was difficult to do it, like you were too busy or you didn't feel like doing it? Has that happened? A, and B, what made you push through and do it?
Yes, there have been times
Hmm.
when I have not wanted to do it based on whatever was going on at that time,
Hmm.
but knowing the peace of mind that I have on the other side
Hmm.
is now invaluable to me. I couldn't imagine not doing it. So to work around that, I have a way that I can break it up into smaller chunks of time.
Oh, I was going to ask you about
Yeah.
that. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I can break it down into basically half-hour chunks, which even if I've got a very busy weekend, because
Hmm.
everything is pretty much electronic, I can do it anywhere that I need to do it. I'm looking at my electronic Google Calendar. I'm looking at my online task manager, which we actually never got to the looking forward piece, which is really that combination of reviewing my calendar,
Mhm.
looking at writing that out onto my paper planner, because I do use a paper planner day to day. It's got a
Mhm.
single page for one day, and it's like my focus
Mm.
for that day. So I don't get distracted by all the other things. It's just the one day in front of me, and that's what I work from. I look at things that I'm waiting for from other people, and I decide, is now the time to follow up. I look at things that are the next actions needed on
Mhm.
my projects, and I decide if those can be slotted in that week. I look if they have due dates, but it really gives you it gives you so much information,
Mhm.
because you can tell if you've overloaded yourself. And I'm no different than anyone else. Things
Mhm.
come up that you don't anticipate, but you can tell when you've overcommitted, and you can try to make conscious choices to either alleviate that or prep yourself with extra recovery time the next week if that's possible. So
Mhm.
you can, be the running like crazy one week, but then
Yeah.
you've got to consciously give yourself a little bit more rest and calm the
Mhm.
following week and let yourself recover.
Right. I like that. Knowing that maybe your review was a little shorter or maybe not as detailed this week because you had a lot going on, but you still did it. You still set aside time and you did something. And then knowing, okay, next week things are going to settle down a little bit. This a big event I'm part of is over, and now I can get back into the groove. So, was part of it for you to keep going the 234 weeks straight? Was part of it that you didn't want to break the streak? Like you had gotten past your 8 weeks, or did that ever come into play?
I'm not particularly motivated by that, other than marveling at the difference between my original 8 weeks and where I am now.
Mhm.
For me, the bigger motivator than the X's on the calendar is
Mhm.
really how it makes me feel and how much in control of my week
Mhm.
I feel I am.
Mm.
And I feel like it reminds me of the agency I have to pick and choose what's going to get done and what's not. I just feel like I make much more conscious decisions
Mhm.
instead of other people or other circumstances making those decisions for me.
Mhm. I like it. I like it. I wanna bring this picture back up because this is something, I mean, if you're in business at all or a professional or a caregiver, or, you're in charge of anything, that anybody or anything that has to do with information, you're dealing with all of these things. We all are. Everybody is, right? And so to be able to have a system where you're pulling it all together to systemize the capture, basically, systemize the capture of it, and then organize it in a way that you have a place for everything, and you have everything has its place to flow to, so you can activate. This is the key piece right here, Kathy, right? The activation, like take that means taking action. And I'll come back to that in a second. So you can relate. And what that means, if you're in business, then that's relating with your clients, your prospects, your vendors, your family, anybody. But the key is the activation piece. And a lot of times, I think, especially people that are like love productivity. I mean, all of us do. I know for me, there have been times where I would just get so into the tool and so into the new system I'm trying, that I'm just spending all the time on that and not taking the action, right? So it really comes down to having a system so that these things are getting done. These and if they don't need to be, if your to-do list or your task manager becomes clutter, then get it off your list. If there's something that's been on your list for, every single time you rewrite your list or you write a new list, or you've got your new tool, your new app, and it's the same stuff and it's just not getting done, then does it really matter? Like, maybe it just needs to go. Get it off
That,
your list.
that's one of the things I do actually in my task manager. Whenever something new gets added, the date
Mhm.
goes in front of it.
Mm.
I put the date, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 2-digit year.
Mhm.
And that's my
Interesting.
decision trigger so
Uh-huh.
that I know how long has this been here?
Yeah.
Because if it's still here after whatever amount of time,
Yeah.
maybe it's not as important as I thought it was. And maybe it's time to take it off the list.
That's right. Which brings us back to, the quote, clutter here. Let me grab it up here right here. Clutter is postponed decisions. And so it's no different. Paper clutter, email clutter, to-do list clutter. It's no different. Those decisions have to be made. And if they're not, that's where the overwhelm and the piling up and all of that stuff comes in. So yeah, this was great, Kathy. I really appreciate you sharing your secrets behind the scenes. I was going to call this Kathy Muzik Tells All, like The Bachelor, the final rose. Kathy tells all. But no, this was great. And a lot of, like I said, you kind of are famous for it in our community as far, oh, Kathy in the weekly review. So I think, people need it, and you've done a great job with it. And thank you for sharing all of your tips. Now, your tips, your strategy, your system, how can people find you? And what would you like them to know about? Here, I'll put this up. There we go. Yeah.
Well, definitely the website,
Mhm.
newpathpro.com. I feel like the most important thing for people to know is that by the time you reach the stress level where you probably are, you're
Mhm.
starting to think that it's you. But
Mhm.
I disagree with that. I think, as Barbara says, people worry about more what they should do and not what they will do. So finding what works for you as an individual is really the most important thing. And hacks and tips and everything are great, but it's
Mhm.
worth the work to
Yeah.
think about it in terms of your own patterns, your own tendencies. And sometimes that means letting some things go, which I know can be difficult. But
Mhm.
to your point, and Barbara's point, you can't do it all. And
Yeah.
maybe now just isn't the time, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen in the future.
Right. Exactly. And if somebody doesn't really know where to start or how to do it, I mean, that's something that you do as a certified productive environment specialist. We know that you help people kind of, declutter the confusion in your mind of where to start. Like, what
Right.
do I do? I want to do this, or I want to declutter, or I want to be organized. Where do I start? So you've got a score. Your scorecard is on newpathpro.com.
Yes, if you go to newpathpro.com, there is an area where you can get your productive environment score, which really is invaluable information to understand where your stress points are. And
Mhm.
that's where we can start building a game plan to help you start eliminating that stress.
Yeah, perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. And last but not least, of course, we have to tell you about our upcoming webinar. You can go to productiveenvironment.com/webinar and then register for our upcoming webinar. We do two different types. So, depending on when you're watching this video, it will either be about organizing your office and paper and physical information, or it will be about your email and your computer and your digital information. And as we just shared, the decision making still has to happen regardless. So whatever you learn in one, you can apply to the other. And the same thing happens with our to-do list. So Kathy, thank you so much for sharing that. I will also just put a plug in for our Productive Environment Network. Those of you that are watching this that know Kathy, she writes regularly and submits blog posts and really thoughtful articles related to productivity and organization. So you can go to productiveenvironmentnetwork.com and join the network. It's free to join. And you can see Kathy in there. You can actually send her a message and connect with her in there as well. So thank you, Eds, for popping that up for us. And great interview. I love this. You've inspired me that I'm going to put into practice your weekly review or your weekly spotlight.
And yours does not have to take 2 hours. So
Right.
don't
Yes.
be intimidated by that.
Yes. Although I can tend to get really in a zone, and I could go 5 hours. Scale it back. But I just love the consistency of it. And we'll end on this. Yeah. We'll end on the consistency piece, that consistency beats intensity. And I think that's what a lot of us do. If myself included, like, oh, I have this new tool, I have this new toy, I have this new system or the new process, and you go all in and you focus on that, and you're really super intense about it. And this is your new planner. I mean, can you guys relate? You get your new planner, and you're going to be so perfectly organized now, and you're really intense about it, but then you're not consistent with it. It falls by the wayside. So I think the message I'd like to leave everybody with, and you're the perfect example of it, is that consistency beats intensity. So find something that works. Take a little bit from here, like you did from the different authors and from Barbara, and take a little bit from here and there and create a system that will work for you and then be consistent with it. And we would love to help you do that. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. And please make sure, if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please do share this video with someone else that needs to hear what Kathy just shared. So thanks so much. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.